Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome to the Mahogany Books discussion. Rest is Resistance by Tricia. Hersey? Hersey? I want to say Hersey every time I say this. Okay, so I'm Derek Young. I am one of the owners here at Mahogany Books. My partner in crime, my co-host for the book club is out, not resting, partaking in the grind culture.
Shout out to Panama.
Shout out to Panama, who's out in Alabama right now. He might jump in.
If he in Alabama, he all good.
See.
I'm just saying.
Just saying.
I thought we had a journalist trip. Is it?
Yeah.
NABJ,
Yeah.
They in Alabama?
Shout out to NABJ too.
Yep. So he sends us love, and our other participant that was supposed to be helping to lead this conversation, my wife, my partner here at Mahogany Books, is a little ill, so she's not going to be hanging out with us in the store today. She may jump in and be sending a whole bunch of comments in the section, so we'll see. You wait for a drink?
Yeah, but I wanted her to make the drink. She's a professional.
Oh.
So that you know she's just straight to
right.
Oh,
Never mind.
I mean, I do
Never
make
mind.
them too, but
Never
today.
mind.
Right. So we're going to be getting into this conversation today. Rest is Resistance. I actually finished the book, down to the last few pages. So I was almost there.
Finished too.
Wow.
Okay. Did you said you
Yeah,
finished?
I finished it months ago.
Yeah. Okay. So, and we had Tricia at a pretty big event at Eton.
Yeah.
So incredible turnout, incredible conversation. So we're just going to now talk about it as a book club in more practical terms. I'm going to pass this first thing because I was given a request to kind of include the rest deck as the start off for this conversation.
Ooh.
And I don't know what
the heck is a rest deck?
So
I'm so glad that you asked. Yes, it's rest tarot cards right here. So it goes with your Rest is Resistance. If you're looking for some way to practice rest, and even though you read the book and saw it, you still don't know how to practically get into this practice, this is the thing for you. So we're going to do a little test run of the 1 card pull, but there are 3 ways for you to pull it: 1 card, 2 card, or 3. So who wants to be our guinea pig for today?
I will.
Okay,
I love
great.
this book. Everything she says, I'm with it.
Awesome. So the first thing you're going to do with your rest deck is you're going to give it a good shuffle. So I'm actually going to pass it to you to shuffle really quick.
While she's shuffling, I make me a drink.
And while we're shuffling, I just want to give you a little synopsis. So each card has a different affirmation on the front side. And then on the back side is the simple rest practice that you can do. So we're going to do our tester one today. And this one is supposed to be with the 1 card spread, which is a soft answer or loud declaration. So you shuffle the deck and spread the cards out in front of you. Close your eyes, let your hands move over the card, and pull one when you feel it's time, when a direct action is needed for you to focus on during your day. Hold this 1 card close. Meditate and engage with the rest practice. So now we'll see what our rest practice of the day is going to be.
And the idea of this is to...
Derek, could you cut the cards?
Yeah.
What's the point of it?
It's the affirmation at the front, right? We are always looking for good affirmations. These are rest affirmations that you can say to yourself throughout the day. And then, of course, actually put it into practice with the information on the back. So I'm just going to spread it out. You can close your eyes, feel where you need to feel, which rest deck is going for you. Okay, read the front part, this colorful part.
I will sit down and daydream.
Wow. Wow. Which is an interesting part in the book that we'll get into after this about daydreaming, right? So what does it say on the back?
Your rest practice is about more than naps. Daydreaming opens up in a moment to tap into possibility, hope, and imagination. Find a place to daydream right now. Sit or lie comfortably. Accept the invitation to go into a portal of care and invitation to trust your daydreams.
That's a really good part. You picked a really good one, especially because with the title Rest is Resistance, everyone thinks it's just dumbed down to naps, but it's a lot more than that.
You know what? I just love this idea that I think as we get older, we forget to daydream. and then dreams manifest reality
Mm.
for us, and we get so busy to dream.
So let's start there. I normally start with either myself or Panama talking about why we selected the book for the month. However, since Ramonda was the person who selected the book and she's not here, what I do want to do is have you guys kind of lead off about what was resonating to you about this book, because you read it a while ago
And
you came out to the event. So what was it for you that that has drawn you to this book?
I think for me, for this book, when she connects us back to Africa, the very beginning, slavery, and how much of our worth was tied up in how much cotton you could pick.
Mm-hmm.
How much. So I thought about in our society, especially when I was younger, you grinding real hard trying to prove something to somebody. And it's almost rooted back in slavery. How hard I work. If I'm the last person at work, if I'm going real hard all day, then I'm proving my worth. And I think like she said, it's radical to stop doing it. To stop trying to prove your worth, because you all know it's only so high we're gonna go.
Mm.
It's only so far you're gonna go, especially if you're working for somebody. Even if you're working for yourself, you cannot keep going at such a high level. Eventually you're going to burn out.
Mm-hmm.
What resonated with me more than anything else, she said during slavery time, they interviewed somebody and they would bring the food to him out in the field.
Yeah.
And he would eat and then get back to work. And I thought, why am I still doing that? Sometimes you eat and you like rushing, and why? When you don't have to. And it's radical to get off the horse, because we are in a grind culture.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting about, I think it was a little bit before that, she talked about even women who would give birth right there.
Yeah.
While they were out in the field, right? And then, so that whole idea again, they weren't people, they were tools.
Yeah.
Right? They were literal plows or whatever.
And now we're inflicting it on ourselves. Yeah. Now we're inflicting that same behavior. If you think about it.
Do y'all know how to get to be?
Yeah, I can show you.
Oh, okay.
So just even like now, if you think about a woman, the transformation that her body has to go through in order to have a baby. Mm-hmm. For us to think that 6 weeks is enough time, it's just ludicrous. Mm-hmm. But what choice does a woman have today, unless she just has money? Mm-hmm. But it's crazy. Yeah. You think about it, 6 weeks later, you're going to work and your body went through that complete transformation. Mm-hmm. It's a grind culture, and I agree with her in the book. In order to get off of that culture, it's revolutionary work that you're gonna have to work on every day, because the culture is to keep going until you burn out. Mm-hmm. And I also like when she said, "Don't rest to rest." I mean, don't rest to do more work. Rest because you need to rest.
I think.
So I disagree with that point a little bit, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, I also think resting does help you work better. And she talks about that. And that's something that I was really drawn to. Yeah. Like, I think it's true that at some point there's a negative return on input, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're literally working 16 hours a day, the quality of that output at some point is not good, right? Because you're not giving your body an opportunity to think it's sharpest, to produce in a way that is more gentle on yourself, but also is genuinely more creative. And I think people often don't think about that. I do think rest for rest's sake is important, but I also think as someone who has people that I manage and supervise, there's also a lower rate of return if you are always working and you don't stop. And so even in that role, I'm like, I need you to stop so you can work too. That is also a true thing. And I appreciate the ways in which she talks about that. And I agree that is a very anti-capitalist sort of energy. I have a restful, as much as I can, work day on Wednesdays. I don't take meetings for the most part. Doesn't mean I'm not working, but it's a more restful day for me. Yeah. I'm thinking about my work. I'm doing writing. I'm not urgently responding to needs all day. I don't know if I actually think we might produce less. I produce less in some instances because I do that, but I think the quality of what I produce is better. we'll see how long it lasts, right? We'll see how long I can do it. But
No, but yeah, to me, I think it's the idea of like what meditation is, right? And so what I really kind of took out of this was there's certain things I agree with, certain things I'm not so in agreement with. Overall, I completely understand and agree with the idea that capitalism in certain people's hands is a tool for white supremacy, is a tool to exploit people, and in modern times today we're just living in a modern day version of sharecropping, right? That's essentially what today is. You got to grow up as soon as you turn 18. How much credit do you have, right? And you can't get good credit unless you're spending money, and then every month you're working to pay off some debt. Otherwise, you're of no use to us, right? You can't even get a job if you don't have so. We're just living in a certain type of modern day sharecropping system. So I understand that whole idea of stepping away from that idea of exploitation for the 1%'s benefit, right? But at the same time, the thing that challenged me with this book is I believe every tool is, I'm a Libra, so I believe there's imbalance, right? Any tool can be used for good or for evil. And if you use the tool of capitalism, there's a way to use capitalism to benefit and empower people, right? And if you're using it in a way that is of actual service, to increase and to enlarge, then that's a positive. And the thing I keep going back to, and I meant to look in a book to remember his name, but when I read the book Black Titan, I forget the brother's name, Alabama, again. He was a Black millionaire. He made a lot of money off of it. Initially, it was like insurance and stuff like that. Then he got into like real estate. And although he wasn't on the front lines during the civil rights movement when MLK was there, when they needed to bail out people, this is the person they went to. When they needed space to house people, to feed people, when they needed those funds to actually do the resistance work of tearing down white supremacy, he was a person that they could depend on because he actually had the funds, right? So it challenges me a little bit when we don't talk about that it is a necessary tool, especially if we're going to tear down the structures of.
you're talking about money. I think money is different than capitalism.
Yes.
But how did he get? But how did he generate
I think in
that?
the United States, capitalism is the only way we really understand how to make money. But I don't think capitalism is the only way to generate wealth, even. That there are other ways of sharing resources that exist in the history of the world that have been more humane. I think generally capitalism is not. American capitalism, and I would argue European as well, is not humane, and I don't think we can redeem it. I don't think money is evil, though. I think it can be, and that's what I'm saying.
So and that's why I'm trying to again, how you implement the tool, right? Because Mansa Musa was one of the richest people in the world, right? There are ways that you can go about a bartering system, right? That does not, like you said, is not inhumane. That isn't just to exploit people, but it's and having that. So again, that meditation, the creativity, the innovation, is necessary to figure out how to step yourself outside of that box and to exist in that world. So, but that was just one of the areas that was challenging for me because I do believe that, it's like I think it needs to be held in conversations need to be held in parallel with each other. I think there are some people that might just run too left with it and not understand that that's
not
not.
provide the
Yeah,
alternative.
so there's a
It's balanced.
there's a balance
And I didn't
there.
get the feeling that she's saying not to grind.
No,
Right,
yeah.
right.
I get the feeling she said grind, but rest.
Right.
Yeah.
She's
And
saying
what she's saying, you don't have to go to a you know.
grind culture now is like that Drake line when he's like, I don't take naps. Like, no, like, you don't always have to be going. And again, it's like going for whom? Like, who are you
Right.
trying to
Who
show
are you
out
trying
for?
to show out?
Why are
at the
you
end of the
trying
day?
to get this
Yes.
money to buy this certain car or buy this certain house or just have this certain amount in your bank account? Unless it's, like you said, something that's constructive service, like
I just think it would cease to be capitalism. That's how I view it, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this as like a purist. I participate in capitalism because I'm married, right? And I wear these shoes. But I think as I think about what the tenets of capitalism are, they are like fair markets. I don't think in this racialized society there's such thing as a fair market, right? Like
At
these
all, yeah.
survival of the fittest, those things that are very anti-Black and racist. But I do think Black people can take the pursuit of money and money making and make something good out of that and make it more holistic. I would argue that small business owners like yourself are involved in that, right? And doing community in a different sort of way.
Yeah.
I for me, in the way our society is rigged, can't conceive of capitalism itself being humane towards Black people. It has to be something else that we create. So we might not be saying, it might be just the use of the word.
Yeah,
We might
it's
be
the use of the
saying
word.
very
And-
much
and the thing is, that's
similar
what,
things.
like, I agree with you. I'm gonna jump back to you. I agree with you, and I think, and that's why I say, like, it has to be done in parallel because, like, so my dream, my next, now that we are, Ramona are now empty nesters ish, like,
Just starting.
Right, I'm like, so what happens with this next phase of my life? Like, what are the things I want to do? And one of the things that I has been a big part of me that I just haven't really pursued, but it always shows up is I would love to teach, specifically at Bowie State University, best HBCU in the world.
HBCU like to differ, but HBCU pride.
HBCU pride, we're going to let them get that.
I would love to teach like social entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right, because I think there's a conversation, exactly what you're saying, there's a conversation around how do you be an entrepreneur, but be community focused, be service focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a conversation that so you're not exploiting people, right? You are being, because not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. So people who work for you because they don't want to do that, well, how do you create an environment where they can still exist and go for their, right? So but you have to we do have to teach specifically to that because business school is not teaching
No.
to that now.
But this is, okay, so Daniel Black in Black on Black, have you read that yet? So
Not
he says that that Black colleges everything they teach need to be grounded in Blackness, right? If they would teach from that perspective, you don't have to teach entrepreneurship because you're teaching them about their culture and themselves. You're feeling
It would
good.
come up more.
You don't have to say entrepreneurship. If you would teach, because I know I went to the greatest Black college on the planet. I mean, it had
So we're just gonna go around.
the Tuskegee University, and I'm just saying. But like now, when I did my education courses, we didn't, and I know it was a different time period. We didn't focus on how to teach Black children in inner city or rural or poverty areas. We didn't focus on that. We just talked about teaching children. So he was saying, like, you're talking about business, and we taught folks about their Blackness. Like now we're saying Black folks don't know Black history. But a lot of us went to Black colleges. If everything was rooted in that tradition, we would rest. You wouldn't have to grind so hard because you would understand about culture and yourself and how you can't build an empire by yourself. You would probably
you wouldn't be aspiring to
you wouldn't be aspiring towards whiteness.
Indirectly.
Your aspirations would be different because you know your people. You would know Musa. You would know your people. So your aspirations and your capitalism would look a little bit different. If that makes sense. That's what Daniel Black is saying. His critique of Black colleges that everything we do should be rooted in Blackness.
So
we wouldn't need your course.
I need to read that.
We wouldn't need your course.
Yeah.
That might be.
You would just be a professor there.
Right.
Then when you're talking about entrepreneurship, but everything you do will be from a Black perspective. Because once you start to know it's easier to get off the capitalism in the way that we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like she said, I participate. I have to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I might be at work. Remember, she said you don't have to go on vacation. You can just take 15 minutes at work. Now at work, I have no shame but closing the door after watching that and taking some time for myself. Before I used to, oh my God, what if the boss walked by and I'm not working? Or now I'll be like, what you doing? Resting?
Mm-hmm. To resettle yourself.
I'm gonna see you in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Let me get myself together.
Oh.
Yeah, I have no problem with saying it now. And if it's and it may be age too, because maybe when I'm younger, I was trying to prove to everybody I'm great. I ain't at that. I'm past the prove stage. This is what it is.
I think that was part of her point in the book too.
It was.
Yeah,
Page
like
80,
you don't
follow
have to
along,
prove.
Page what page?
Page 80.
We have to stop trying to prove.
Yes, our word. Like we used to do with how much cotton you can pick.
Yes. And then
This is not that day.
So what was
on page 80, the last paragraph, she talks about loving the idea of simply existing and just being for Black folks. The idea of you got to be better than those before you. Black excellence and the never-ending cycle to be an inspiration and a quote-unquote model is tiring, unsustainable, and steeped in white supremacy, respectability politics, and wrecks our self-esteem as Black folks. Like that's it right there. She was saying it. Like,
And she said, what if we, in that same part, keep on going.
what if we simply saw our birth and living and breathing in connection with ourselves and families as enough? This deep knowing of our divinity without doing another thing. This is what I hope for so many of us. So yeah.
I like the book and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I was trying to. This is like I feel like this is. I meant to look up the definition of manifesto, because I feel like there's something
Yes.
about how, because for me, and maybe it's the way that my mind works, I'm looking for practical knowledge. Right?
Yeah.
Especially when I read books like this.
She said, "I'm not going to give that
Right.
to you."
She
actually said that.
Right. So and I'm like,
I was wondering
so for
what that
me,
too,
I'm
Derek.
kind of like, where is this information?
Because Derek, I think
She said, "You got to
think
sweat
about
it
this
out."
like now. You as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
me working for somebody else, and also doing my little consulting on this,
Your consulting,
having more than one job,
right?
source of income. It may look different for you than it does for somebody else. The rest part.
No, so I get that part, but I think so. The piece of it that I think is like the 201 version or 301 version of this book, that to understand that there are some people that it's all about persuasive argument, right? This is what this book
That's
is.
what it felt like.
Right. Persuasive
like
argument.
one-on-one.
That we need to get you out of this mindset, right? Like we need to shatter it, we need to break it, and I'm a sermon from the mountaintop to get you out of it. So, and I get that and I appreciate that. But if a person has kind of already understand it and now they're trying to figure out, well, I got the two sides of me. There's my passion projects, there's my things that I want to do to build, to leave a legacy, but I also want to be able to rest so I can be here long enough so that my family and friends and I can enjoy the fruits of my labor, right? So there's that part of it. I'm like, okay, so what is that step? Because I agree that, like, I enjoy Black excellence, but it's not Black excellence for them. It's Black excellence for the young guy that walks in here and is trying to figure out, well, how do I get my clothing line off the ground, right? It's those people that I'm thinking about, that Black excellence is still necessary, but it's not for the white gaze.
It's not for impressing one.
Right, it's for us.
And we have to be so mindful
Mhm.
that we are not unconsciously, because we're in this white supremacist society, that we're not doing it for white folks unconsciously.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
what she
hard.
was saying. She was trying to get to, I think, it's important we have discussions like these to make sure we have that 2.0 saying kind of, like, which we all understood, but just, it's not who the talented 10th is for the white people. It's for us to show, like, once you see it, you can be it kind of thing.
I
So,
have a question.
yeah.
I listen.
Oh, Lordy.
I listen on audio,
Mm-hmm.
and I started to think, I think I'm probably missing something by not reading how she breaks up things in
Yeah.
the book.
Mm-hmm.
I like the content. It did feel very repetitive. to
Oh
me.
yeah,
very,
definitely.
very, very. I was like, did I just hear this exact sentence?
It is
It
repetitive.
is. Why? Why is it so repetitive?
Maybe
Is
she's
my
trying to,
question.
So
Is that thing that
I
you
think
were
it was
talking
about the
Yeah.
persuasion. I think it's really
It's
about, and
persuasion.
that's why.
Yeah.
So my producer Ramunda is
What's up, Ramona? I hope you feel
dropping
better.
knowledge in the comments. So again, everyone else, please feel free to drop comments in. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube Live, we'll definitely share them in this conversation and respond back to them. But Ramunda put the definition of manifesto in here, defined as a public declaration of policy and aims, especially one issued before an election by a political party or candidate. So not 100% tied to it, but the declaration of policy and aims, I think, really fits. If the aim is to decolonize people, to tear down white supremacy, to complete, because again, I get it. You have to change people's mindsets about the social media, right?
Mhm.
About just all the consumption of things that isn't necessarily about, or is done with the wrong intent. Like, it's okay to I love my sneakers, right? But am I getting my sneakers to fill a void,
Right.
to impress somebody? Or is it simply, hey, I work hard, this is what I appreciate and I like.
A treat.
Right. Then
opposed
there's
to
there's the kind of balance. Because if you're doing it for the other reason, then you get into this grind mindset. I need to spend more than I have, right? There's so many different ways that can go left for you, that you have to be in balance with it. So yeah, I think it's about making that persuasive argument.
Mm-hmm.
To
and
really-
she keep repeating it over and over again in a different way, and it was repetitive.
And she believes in affirmations too, which is a part of rest and going back. So
That's
when you
true.
say affirmations, we say them repeatedly, all the time. So
Especially if you're reading a book, which
Right.
makes sense if you're reading and you're having to kind of.
So I think I'm with Derek in that, I would be very interested in another book that's I already practice rest, right? I'm a rester. I'm already sold on resting. This doesn't mean there's no value in the book for me. Definitely value in the book, but it felt like she was convincing me of something I didn't need to be convinced of.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, like you're saying. It's
Mhm.
more like, what do I do when the same person over and over and over again doesn't want me to rest?
Yeah,
Some of that.
that's like I was at 101.
It seems to be like a workbook, and you see some people do that. So you'll have the book, right?
And
so,
then the workbook.
so here's the theory, right? And
And then the
now,
card.
Now the
which
cards.
cards is great, right?
Right.
And cards are
No,
great.
I
And that's
like
why
those
That was for me
that's
too.
why reading
I might
those
need
and
to get
having
those
those
cards,
available. I can see, like you say, in your classroom.
Because that's
let me
a
pull one
higher
out.
level thing, actually.
That is.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like
When she said
day-to-day
sit down
practicing.
and
Yeah.
daydream and all
And then
that.
affirmation at the front, again,
Yeah.
repeating something, right? A focus.
Yeah, I like that
You know?
because I'm already psychologically sold on it. The
Mhm.
cards are something that could help me.
Right.
Right. And for me, I hadn't given it a lot of thought like I should have. I believe in my little 8 hours of sleep, but everybody not go to bed early. But I hadn't thought about it in terms of our value and how hard we work, how we think it's connected. How hard we work. And you all see the people bragging. I worked 15 hours back before the pandemic. People would brag about working
Mhm.
Yeah.
all day. And people are like, oh my God, like you're doing something. We would actually congratulate that behavior
Mhm.
as if it was okay. It's not okay. And like she said in the beginning of the book, I can't remember what she said. People are dying young
Mhm.
because they're doing too much. Big mama and them and
Blood
all
pressure,
them.
just
High
all
blood
this
pressure.
stuff, cholesterol, because you're
Grinding, and you're not
Yeah.
taking time to cook. You're not taking time to take care of yourself. So then here comes grind culture, and then you're dying young. And Black folks can't afford to do it because we know when we get into the healthcare system, you ain't gonna get good care, even with insurance. So you may want to take care of yourself on the back end.
as much as possible.
Especially with the mental gymnastics of just being a Black person in racial America. You're doing all these things, grind
did
costs
describe
are
the
physically
mental
on your
gymnastics,
body,
yeah.
right? The body will keep
Tore it
its
up.
score, but it's also a mental thing too. I don't know if you guys have gotten mentally exhausted and then you're like, man, I feel like I just need to lie down because I can't go through it.
Yeah.
It's in tandem. So
And like you said, that's another layer
Yeah,
for
I
Black
feel
folks.
that every week. some point.
Because if you work with
And I rest. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
And
hard
if you
to keep
work
up
with-
with.
and if you
I
work with white
exercise, I
folks,
rest, I
yes.
eat.
And if you work with white folks, that mental exhaustion, you just need a break.
And yeah, not
That mental exhaustion
yeah.
when you work in white worlds,
That's why I drink straight.
it's right.
They pushed it.
It ain't just physical at that point. It's really like you need to go in black spaces and just
Right, and so that's a rest practice,
Yeah.
right? You
I'm
choosing
getting
to
hot
go
thinking
to a black space where you feel safe.
you can
You
rest.
can rest. That's a
That's
rest
why we
practice.
sit in this
So it's not necessarily resting.
Me
with
too.
nothing,
Oh,
like-
you think we be up in here like,
Yeah.
yeah, what you doing? I ain't even lying nothing. Come up and just be. I'm like, why she drop in here all the time?
But I love it. I
It's
love
to,
it.
yeah, it's to get
I
away.
just come to talk on the brand. Like, let me see what she doing.
It's that ability to, you know, I wonder if it has impact on people and the anxiety that they're feeling nowadays, especially young kids. Is that because, you know, in middle school, high school is go, do.
Too much.
Get this big GPA because now it's even harder to get into schools, and if you don't do this, it's
Old
really
age got me sweat.
it's really tough. But
It is.
you know, and now kids are, you know, showing and not responding, not showing the resilience towards some of these stressors, because it feels like part of it is that because they are
They've given up.
they haven't created that practice to step back, to release all of that trauma and angst that's being built up. And when they get in a place where now there's more pressure, I'm not even dealing. I'm bailing on the situation because I don't know how to self-manage and
That's very true,
release
yeah.
that.
Especially in the day of social media, like I was part of like the generation where social media was just pecking its head like up, you know, but these kids now, they're bombarded with so many different images of everything, right? And it does kind of create that. That's why it's definitely important to work on.
I'm glad
taking
you
a
brought
step
that
back.
up. I was uncertain about her. I mean, she really like hates social media, and I felt a little uncertain about. I don't think her point was wrong, but I wondered if she was putting more on it than it deserved. I feel like social media is a coping thing, and that if people weren't obsessed with social media, there'd be something else that people were using and
Maybe
like
there's something else would be
escaping through.
actually going to somebody's house and chit chat. Maybe there's something else would be going for a walk. Maybe there's something else doesn't have to be something.
I mean, but
negative.
did people do that more before social media?
They were
I
doing
guess that's
something
the
else. That's what I'm saying. What I'm
That's
saying.
what I'm saying. They were doing
Maybe
something
they were just
else.
watching TV.
Maybe they were. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like
They were doing something
people
else.
cope, and I don't know if social media has created worse versions of people, or if it has facilitated it, but other things could do that too.
I think
That's all I was
it's the
thinking
devil. I'm about with her. I think it's the devil. I do. I think that we're going to eventually get to the point where.
You think social media? Is
Oh,
the devil?
absolutely, absolutely. It's definitely. I totally agree with her. I think that so many people are spending so much time on that, and they think it's about my business, or it's about my whatever. It's not. It's about being judgmental of other people. A lot of times, she went to Ghana. Well, I need to go to Madagascar. You know what I mean? Like, you notice people are trying to keep up with other people. They're overwhelmed. It's just, and I know so many people have anxiety from that. And they can't delete it. Like, they know Facebook is causing them harm because they're judging everybody, talking about everybody. But then it's anxiety about deleting it. I do think it's a problem. I just do. I think it's a huge problem. I don't know about you guys. For instance, the guy I work out with, he's from Eritrea. He knows all this news about Africa. Like now how they're rising up. They joining with Russia or whatever. They doing it. I don't get that news. Where is he getting it from? From social media. You see what I'm saying? So he is getting stuff that confirms what he believes, not a worldview. For me, I'm probably getting things that just confirm what I think. So I'm not getting a variety of opinions to actually talk about, if that makes sense. So then it's like now I'm hating everybody. It's like I got to just be black. I can't be black and also for the LGBT community. I can't. That's what it seems to me.
I think we need more digital literacy because I think social media is like just like anything. You can use it and it can be really great, or you can use it and it can be really bad. And I think most people don't turn their brains all the way on when they use social media and just use it as a venting source, like you said, to just get out whatever opinions that they want to get out. And it can be detrimental sometimes. But then there's also like the good side about being exposure, like especially when it comes to like Bookstagram, Book Talk, and how people use social media to help the publishing industry, right, and change the view of certain books that are getting exposed. So I just feel like more digital literacy, and I feel like her point too, I know she's very against social media, but I think for anyone, you got to take breaks from stuff. Just like anything you've been taught, everything good is in moderation. So if you're on social media, not necessarily for your business all the time, but just like scrolling on Twitter to see who's talking or to see what the new latest update is for some drama for some celebrity, then yeah, okay, you're not using it right. But if you're going on your social media and the people you follow, you're finding out relevant Black news about something that's going on, or if you're finding about book news or just relevant topics, then it can be used for good. Just make sure that you take a step back and don't feel like everything has to be social media, everything has to have this filter, be perfect in a certain way, curated in a certain way.
And all this stuff is in combination, so you can't like the use of social media, or to be able to separate yourself from social media means you're okay being by yourself sometimes, right?
Right.
And having the wherewithal to say, you know what, I'm okay doing a Derek day, right? It's just going to be me. I'm going to just do me. I'm going to hang out with me. I'm going to eat by myself, and I don't care what anyone else is saying or doing when they look at me and see me by myself.
And not post it afterwards. So.
Right. I just did with the what's name, but I met the founder of Uncle Nair, so I just had to.
But that's relevant. That's for the people.
So
we need to know. You know what I'm saying?
So I want to read real quick. So Ramunda says, so social media, commenting on social media. She uses social media. Make sure I'm reading this right. She uses social media. I took her point as being many of us are driving ourselves crazy trying to produce content day in and day out and not simply enjoying rest. We are hyped up on receiving likes and visibility versus taking time to breathe, daydream, etc. It would be okay if we used it simply as a tool. We are not. And that's part of what we're saying is, again, all these things are given to us, right? And my firm belief is all these ideas are, what's the word? Inspirations from God, right? They're blessings. But how do you use it, right? It's not the thing, it's the person. That person who's using that thing for evil, for greed, for self-service versus the upliftment and empowerment of other people is where we get into this space. And that's like,
that's similar to how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that's the issue.
But if you watch the documentary, that's what is it? Social Dilemma. Have y'all watched that? So basically, in that, if he's telling the truth, he's saying that the people who did like Facebook and particularly Facebook are people who know the brain. They hire people who know the brain and addiction.
Yeah.
So they did it based on that. So that's like telling somebody it's a true addiction. The way they were saying when you scroll every time and you see something up top, it's something different, right? So think about it, you create a tool that causes addiction. It's like fentanyl, the drug, whatever. It causes addiction. So you can't blame the person for being addicted. You see what I'm saying? They don't know that one jump is going to be me in the bathroom right now. I need Narcan. You see what I'm saying? So you created a tool that's causing addiction, and now you're blaming the people. They didn't know. You see what I'm saying? People didn't know they got brain scientists, and it's like your brain. I know when I got off Facebook, I was like, oh my God.
Advertising.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So that's my only point, is that it's not just that social
even
media
with that,
is more diabolical necessarily.
But most people ain't watching TV. But most of us ain't watching TV with commercials anymore, almost.
That's right. So I'm saying it's the tool of our age that's being abused.
Right.
But when I was a middle school girl, I was worried about what other girls thought. We didn't have social media. Social media didn't create the phenomenon of comparing yourself to other people and
It just magnified.
I scrolled by just thinking about the other girl and what they
So
thought of me.
it
I wasn't
was-
scrolling on a screen, but like in my mind, I was still scrolling about what other kids in school thought about me.
Right.
That's
but
my only
I think,
point.
but I think that with that, when you were scrolling through your mind,
Yes,
for me, I can't speak for everybody else. When I got home, I was able to take a break from it though.
I was.
No.
I'm with mom and them. That's just me. I'm just with mom and them. And I'm black, my neighborhood black, everybody looking like me. So I could just take a break when I got home. I was able to rest when I got back to my community. Then when I got back out in the world the next day, now I'm
there
back.
is a point
so I
about
was
the
resting at
access.
home.
Having phones means we have access.
I was
in a
resting
way
at
that-
home with my folks.
I mean, it's a. I mean, what we're so and where we are in the process is talking about those things that keep us focused, keep us from focusing on the self, right? So, because I understand TV, right? TV,
Mhm.
Yeah.
social media is not my thing.
TV.
TV is the thing that I can blank out on, right?
Yeah.
And I can watch series after series after series on TV. For other people, for other guys, it might be Madden, right?
Right.
Or
Mhm.
computer games, whatever it is. There are vices that everyone has that take them away from focusing on self, to get them away from thinking about, right, how do I got a procrastination issue. Like, how do I think through the process of that challenge, right? But back to, and what she's talking about is that rest, that moment of, and again, I just keep thinking meditation because that's what became pivotal for me in my early years, was realizing that there were things that I could do that could slow my mind, and I could come out of it feeling peaceful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. I could actually be doing something. I didn't necessarily have to sleep, but I could walk out of that moment feeling invigorated. If I was looking at art, if I was drawing, if I was writing, if I was even, I remember working at a bookstore and shelving books and finished it. And I was like, I felt like, because my mind, I was just with myself, right? I wasn't worrying about anything. I was with myself. So it's those moments that replacing, whether it's the social media, whether it's TV, playing games, with that silence for yourself, and that's that's the part of maybe what this rest deck does, or maybe a workbook in the future of helping people realize, well, how does meditation work for me? Like, I couldn't just sit there and do like the old thing.
Right.
Like, I would counting backwards from like by 3, I would do that. That never worked for me. There was other ways I could realize that I could find some time just to kind of chill, or even sit in my car and drive and just with no music and just let myself daydream. Like, whatever thoughts come to mind is what come to mind, and that's what my mind just have a chance to ruminate on.
I think that's one of my favorite parts about this entire thing, and that was one of my favorite parts when we had the book event with her back in May, is her setting aside the time to literally just stare at trees every single day so that she could daydream. And
good.
I think about how so much of my own like personal life, whether it was me getting inspired for a new story writing or whatever, it was just based on me finding some time in nature, whether that's looking at some trees or getting to a beach, because I'm a water sign, so you gotta be close to the water. But, just giving that time to just let your mind blank and go with itself, right? And then come back, right? And she talks about grounding, but grounding yourself, which is important too, and how that helps. But I think daydreaming is a practice that a lot of adults lose that we should tap back into.
I agree with that.
We teach it out of kids,
Right.
like that. It becomes a negative when you're in school,
Yeah.
right? Were you daydreaming?
You check out the
Yeah,
clouds.
but that's where that's where the inspirations come from. Like, well, what if, right? Like when she talked about the whole Afrofuturism thing, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
That might have been my favorite part
Y'all
of
seen
the
that
book.
exhibit at the African American Museum?
I have.
The African American Museum, their special exhibit right now is Afrofuturistic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
open to
We
And-
have the book. We did
And-
have
Next
the
month,
book.
24.
And it's
Okay.
phenomenal. They got Chad.
Is it based on the book?
Yeah, so that Afrofuturism book is from the Smithsonian, from the
Okay.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They got Octavia Butler, her typewriter is in there.
Yeah.
Chadwick, his Black Panther.
Yeah.
You know, psychedelics.
Yeah,
It's all that.
That imaginings of what the future can be, right? And
That's really hard to get people to do that. I try to do that in my work, and it's a lot of work to get even people who are young, right? Like across age limit or age ranges. It's hard for people to imagine. Like
Something
what can
different.
exist?
And if it's out there,
What could the school system be like?
If you can't imagine it, I'm telling you.
What?
Right.
Even your own life, if you can't think about your life being different, if you can't actually see it, I just don't think it can happen. I just think it's almost impossible. There are what's those big trees with the pink flowers on there? Are they dogwoods? They're blooming all over DC now, right? And they're right literally across the street, 3 big ones. And they're so beautiful. And I was thinking, like, well, I didn't see them last year. You see what I'm saying?
Daydreaming will just.
So I'm just sitting out there, I'm like, oh my God, like these are just so gorgeous, and they're right outside my door. And then my brain was like, why did I see them last year? What the heck was I doing?
Right.
That I didn't see these. I'm sure they ain't new.
Right.
What was I doing last year that I didn't see these 3 big, beautiful trees right outside my door?
Yeah. No, I mean that's that piece. I loved the whole and in the educational space when she talked about teaching poetry to the kids, and then mid-course switching it from what the realities are now to imagining what your future could be. I mean, and that's part of like, again, helping to insert hope into our community, right? Where people are feeling like, you know what, can't get a job, schools are trash, I walk outside, my door is trash, right? Like the services and resources are just terrible. You go across the street and their part of the city is beautiful, and you come back to this place where it just feels like no one cares, right? But to have the ability to teach into kids imaginings of what the future could be if you were in charge, if you could switch things up, what would that look like, right? And then you can just reverse engineer that to, well, here's how you could get there. But I love that piece of teaching imagination, and even the term of reimagining, like this is what it is, but how can you reimagine what this could be in your life?
And we used to do that, guys. We used to play with your little baby dolls. I'm not saying it was healthy, but you'd be like, "Ooh, this my husband, this my house." I'm saying we didn't change it, but we were doing like I was passing by some projects the other day that looked so terrible to me on the outside. It just made me sad. But then I saw 4 little girls out there, right? And then I drove back. I'm like, let me get another look. They were jumping around happy. I'm not saying they are happy, but they were. So I was thinking, maybe they're still imagining, they're still dreaming, even though where they live just looks really ugly on the outside. I don't know what the inside of their places look like. They could be nice.
Tying back into Derek's Afrofuturism on page 95. In Octavia Butler's Parable of Zoe, which you can get in store and online.
And it's great.
The young main character serves as inspiration for our journey.
You can't train that.
No,
you can't train that, Derek.
No.
Derek, this girl is a bookseller right here.
Thank you. Please remember that when it's time for my performance review. Okay. On 95, it says, this character, she says, I'm learning to fly, to levitate myself. Yes. No one is teaching me. I'm just learning on my own, little by little. Dream lesson by dream lesson. Yeah. And I think that's, just gives me chills. Man, Octavia Butler. Can't wait for a book club read when we do that one. But
yeah. Oh, that's coming up. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
Yeah,
Just bring it back to that point.
Okay. Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
So I wanted to we have a comment in here about page 133.
Let's go.
Where the quote is,
I do have my glasses. I'm struggling for no reason.
Our focus is to lay down because it is our divine right to do so, not because it will prepare our bodies to be more productive.
It says our rest movement is not focused on productivity.
Yes.
It is instead a political and social justice movement rooted in our collective rest. We must resist together. We must liberate together. We must rest together. So maybe that was also part of the repetition too.
Yeah.
Trying to call to action all of us.
And like when she said, our rest movement is not focused on productivity. And one thing about her saying this over and over, the repetition, you remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can remember when she said this more than one time, that our rest is not based on productivity. So for me, that's stuck in my brain. Like, we're not resting to do more work. You're resting because you need to rest.
Mm-hmm.
And it does make the work better.
Yeah.
But you're resting because your body needs to rest. It's just simple as that. And I was just thinking about, like, I got some work to do next week, and I spent all day today working. But I'm like, you wait till next Friday. I'm going to wake up and I'm just going to be looking at them dogwoods. I just am.
Yeah.
I'm just going to look at them trees, like, as long as I feel like it.
Yeah.
And I ain't going to feel guilty about it.
No, and
I'm not, and when work
that
go
part
back
right
for
there.
real, I'm going to do it some more.
yeah.
And I see Black women,
Mhm.
particularly, we doing the goddamn thing right now. Like, we knocking down freaking doors. There's a price to it if you don't rest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are just, like, when you read April Ryan's Black Women Will Save the World, when you read the book, she brings it, it's what we already know, but she just brings it home until Black women are doing the darn thing today. I hope they're resting. I don't want to see Keisha Lance Bottom dead at 60.
Yeah, and the body does keep score. So in Marita Golden's book, Strong Black Woman, where she's dismantling what it means to be a strong Black woman, to not include rest, but definitely include rest, she talks and shares her own personal journey about how she had suffered 2 strokes and had no idea until she went to the doctor, and they were like, hey, we see that in your charts. Did you know you had these 2 strokes? And she was just running, showing up in all the different roles that she had as a Black woman at the time, trying to be the strong Black woman, holding it all down. It's like, no, your body's going to catch up to you, or it's all going to catch up to you eventually. And it does keep score, and you don't want to find yourself, dead at a young age because of that. So.
And one thing about the body is consistently trying to preserve us.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's constantly working. You can abuse it all you want, but it's consistently trying to preserve.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, it needs to rest too.
Yeah.
So you're going to pay the price. You're going to pay it it's sooner or later, because the body is doing all it can to try to preserve. And even it is going to probably, it's doing all it can do. It's going to get tired.
Yeah. You want to say something, Z?
Yeah, I was just thinking, one of the things I liked about the book too was like trying to deprogram us from thinking that our body is just something to override.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're tired, that's laziness.
Yep.
If you're tired, that's just, it's whatever, but you can be fine. And I think that's been a really transformational thing for me and as an adult. Like, I should listen to what my body is trying to communicate to me, right? Even if it doesn't align with my goals for the day or my goals for the week, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I keep rolling too. I keep going. I'm trying to remind myself that it's okay not to keep going.
So my question is, and I don't know if, so I think I do have some of this, but a part of it I do kind of wonder at is the thing about feeling guilt about not doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And one of the, like, so I don't know. I there are times that I definitely feel like I haven't done enough, right? That I could have been more productive. But I think I'm trying to make more of a comment on how I can just be more efficient as a person, right? Not get sidetracked by tuning into ESPN or whatever. Instead of saying, if I'm going to do this for an hour, knock it out, and not, for 35 of those minutes side-eyeing, World Cup soccer or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I recall a moment in my life early on, maybe 15 years ago, where, again, I'm imagining opening up a bookstore and trying to answer these questions like, how would it succeed? What would it be? And I came to the conclusion that, you know what? I don't need to be rich, right? Like, what is wealth for me? Like, so it kind of forced me trying to figure out, because everyone's like, well, how you compete against, that company over there?
You don't have to.
How do you do this? How do you do that? And I'm sitting here just like, in my head, I'm like daydreaming, I'm meditating on all these questions, and my answer was, it came back to what is most important to me,
Mhm.
right? What was most important to me is that, one, I tried, two, that I was of service to people. And if that meant that I could take care of my family and support the community, then I'm good. I don't need to be like rich. So that's when I was like, oh, that's what rich and wealthy, like what are you defining as wealth for yourself
Yeah.
versus what the world is telling you what wealth is, right? And so that helped me with the idea of the guilt piece. So I wonder if again, taking the time to meditate on some of these things, to define what is most important for you, not what capitalism or society is telling you is necessary for you. You defining for yourself, you know what, this is what is important for me in my service to other people. And at the end of my life, hopefully when it's 109, right, I'll be happy and content that I did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, like,
that's what she's saying. I think that's what she's
exactly
saying.
what she's saying.
Because she's like, there's too many moving parts. You can't get to that place where you're finding that out. If you are constantly on social media and you're following all of these big luxury item kind of
other
things
people are
that
telling you
other
who you
people
should
are
be.
doing and saying, this
That's
is
good.
how you live wealthy. This is how you find that wealth. And she's like, you need to quiet the mind. Kind of quiet the mind, but like find a quiet place to be with yourself to get to those kinds of enlightened epiphanies, you know, and can move on.
And it's radical to get off that. It just is.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about what calms my mind. Like nothing calms my mind like reading. That's the old school thing I've been doing. When I'm just like got thoughts all over the place, books make me focus on one thing. Like my brain is only thinking about this one thing at a time. So I make the time to do that. So it brings my brain and my whole body down to one thing. And I am thinking about that book, but I'm only thinking about that instead of where I need to
It's
go.
different for everyone. Some people like
That's a
walking,
form of
right?
Or knitting. Like
Right,
some people may be
knitting,
knitting or what. But think about it. Whatever you're doing, like a knitting, for instance, that's causing your brain to focus on one thing instead of being. So it's almost like you have to find
That's
the time to calm the
Yeah.
brain, whatever that is, just to calm your brain down, especially in the world that we're living in that's consistently stimulated. Like our phones do every freaking thing. So that's why we're looking at it all the time. It's not just social media. It does everything. So it's like, when can you just, like, I take my phone upstairs. I'm going to go downstairs and just read. I'm just going.
I will say
Without the horse.
this definitely is it calls to your soul. There's also spiritual elements, you know.
Yeah.
She was
Talked
preaching.
about
She was preaching.
even when she
I can definitely
came
see
in.
how that divinity school, like,
Oh, yeah.
all
Yeah.
through there, and I
Oh, yeah.
appreciate it though,
Me too.
because it wasn't that it was like just crazy based in like Christian ideology.
Yes.
No.
It was just based in understanding that you are divine,
Yep.
and you are connected to something bigger,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Which is
Oh, you said the word bigger. That's the Beyonce song I put on my
oh my
IG
goodness, stop.
Oh, really?
Yes, it
Are you
is.
really going there? She's excited about BA song. Are you
Oh,
going to
no,
the concert this weekend?
No, you
I am.
really brought it back because on my
When
IG
you
post, if you
Sunday.
follow me, I said
got your
tune
new
into
outfit.
Facebook Live
Yeah.
to see how this song ties
Everywhere she
into
go, it blows
the
the
book.
economy up.
In
People
it,
buy
she
this.
says, life is your divine right. They don't say that in the fine print. So you brought it back. You
I
brought
see
it
you
back.
testing new makeup.
Okay. Well, that wasn't intentional because I'm not about to quote Beyonce.
Listen to Bigger by Beyonce.
This is my first Beyonce
It goes
concert.
in tandem with this. We're
I
praising
have
the Bigger.
paid attention to nothing since Beyonce.
Why are you bringing up
I know,
Beyonce?
so
Bring me
I'm sorry to Beyonce, if you see this,
I ain't gonna send you the wine, but you can send me a ticket. Send it to MahoganyBooks. Send it to Derek. I get it. Send my ticket to Derek.
next time she comes, we'll
Well, don't sell my
somehow-
Hey, put my name on it so you can't sell it.
But yeah, we are a part of something like bigger,
Mhm.
right? And that's what she's calling us to. And I really felt it when she came.
Oh, Derek
check
went out.
that. When Tricia was here and she led us in like the ending affirmation, it really felt like church. Like she was leading a whole church service. I was like, "Go ahead, Tricia, call us to deeply connect.
And in church practice is repetition.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's
Repetition is
and
all
that,
for
and that response and call.
all in
She
response.
told
And I
us she
feel
was
it.
Kojic background.
I feel
Yeah.
it. I felt it in this book. I just think it's a call to
Yeah.
for us to be more in community and be making more time for each other and knowing that our spaces do heal.
Yeah.
I
do.
appreciated at the end of the book how she shared. I'm not saying this as a wealthy, privileged person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
I think that
I
she
do
finally
think
got that
sometimes people with more means are very judgy and like, you just need to take a nap.
You be like,
Yeah.
We won't get into that one.
Right.
You're like, I think you can tell someone
Yeah.
who's not sure when they're going to eat next
Yeah.
to just take
Right.
a nap.
Yeah.
Like, you
I know. Okay. But that's
What?
important too. She's coming from like a real people place, a real relatable place of her parents grew up. She talked in one part about how she had never seen a vacation for like her first 23 years of life. Like her parents, because they lived in poverty, they couldn't afford, like every single penny was going to keeping the roof above their head, keeping food in their mouth. So I think that is important too, like what it feels like to go through that and to come back to it now and say, no, this is important and this is how we keep going.
Yeah.
And for the person who cannot eat, right? Working an extra hour, you're still not eating. You might as well just go on, take your nap.
What?
I'm just saying. And maybe your work journey will be better. Maybe your search for a job will be better. You see what I'm saying?
It's going.
Yeah.
Y'all know what
So,
I'm saying.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
You ain't eating anyway, so just go on and rest.
So there's two things I wanted to talk other things that kind of stood out to me in this book, and not necessarily what she said, but it just kind of made me think about her as a person and her journey. The first piece, which we talk about more about in the later parts of the book, about her being a poet, her being an artist,
Yes.
and I wonder about what how that tied into her imaginings of this, because to me, an artist would think like that. Like they are searching ways to be outside the box to express something that is like so abstract and maybe not have the words for. They're constantly seeking that out. So I wonder what you guys think about her and her being an artist and how that might have influenced her work. The other piece that stood out to me was when she talked about doing, I think it was the first rest retreat. I forget the word she called it, when she did an installation and people had the blankets and stuff. And how impactful that was for people to be like, wow, like just that moment of care for themselves. Like, so those are two things that stood out to me in the book that I wanted to kind of put out there for conversation. What you guys think?
I think those who are not so creative could lean into this book a little more. I feel like, as a creative, you are trying to find inspiration or ways to ground yourself. Like I said, you go out in nature, right, and find inspiration there, or you go to a bar and people watch, right? That might be inspiration. Although people watching, I wouldn't say necessarily it's like rest practice, but it's a practice you're doing to get back into your creative juices side. So I feel like that definitely influenced her, but I feel like if you're not so much of a creative person, then this would be a good book to start from, for people to be like, maybe your technical brain doesn't really want to rest because you're like, I got to be doing something. If I'm going to be this doctor, it has to be all related to being a doctor. But what about the humanities part of it, right? I think we have to have both. So.
Yeah, I like that. And so what I jump to now is, again, all the repetition to help a person who is so logic based,
Right, logic based,
that they have to, like, how do you get them to say, okay, stop? Like, even your logic mind needs to rest so that you can process these formulas or variables properly. Otherwise, your work doesn't work. So I don't know that, but
I thought I think that the artistry definitely was influential, and I wonder if the people who came to take the nap were also artistic or considered themselves creative, because I think that's kind of freaky if you're not. like I think it could be intimidating and overwhelming to go take a nap with a group of strangers, unless it was people she had already created a lot of community with online, so they kind of feel like they know you already, or it was through a studio that they already trusted. Like, if my yoga instructor wanted us to do something like that, I would be like, well, I trust you. So, but she made it seem like it was mostly strangers and people who didn't really know each other. But I think creatives could tap into that more easily and be like, well, you know, the vibes are right. You know, me over here like, oh, it doesn't sound crazy.
Right. I'm like, it don't sound that crazy.
And when you say that, the thing that popped up in my head was when she talked about the young lady who said, you know, most days I find myself very lonely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't have people that I can connect with. So even that moment, creating the space for that person to be able to connect with other people, even if it's just
it was about rest, but it was also about human interaction.
Human connection. Because we're definitely not robots, and that's what I was getting back to with like the logical brain. Like, you know, we're more than just reasoning, right?
And we think we're not. Even like now with the pandemic and not seeing people or whatever, right? So like, you know, a lot of like sororities, for instance, people don't want to go back because we haven't been back. But there's value in being together. Like there's value in that. But now people are like, I don't want to get up on a Saturday and go to sorority. Well, it's only once a month. And I'm feeling the pain. Like I haven't been back to church for that reason. Not that I don't want to go to church. It's just that it's a Sunday. And I feel that time with other stuff now. It's harder to do that. But I guarantee if I would go back regularly, I'm sure there was something there I'm missing. It's the community or the singing or something that I'm probably missing that I would... But it's hard to do it. So I think what she's saying, if we can get off some of the social media and maybe slow down, then we can go back to connecting with people. Our companion to this book to me is that book Platonic. And Platonic, I can't think of her name. I heard her talking about it on the podcast, read the book. It was life-changing for me because she's saying that your platonic relationships are just as important as your romantic. You can learn things from them. And she was saying you have to make time to cultivate those, just like any other type of relationship. So when I read this book, I'm thinking when you resting, it could be with other people. It could be in forms of other people where it's community resting. Maybe you and your friends go and just sit in Anacostia Park and watch the kids skate.
Right.
Or just go. They do yoga over at Anacostia Park. Maybe you're not doing it. You're just engaging. You see what I'm saying? But you can do that with other people and be in communions. And I'm thinking a lot of us are. When I read that book, I thought about people being lonely. But to be unlonely is going to require effort. So with my friends, I call a lot of my friends and said, you know what? I've been knowing you for years. I think we need to cultivate the friendship. We need to make sure that it's growing stronger. And if you're not on board, I'm good. But the people who are, I'm saying, okay, so what are we going to do? Maybe we'll do a little weekend trip. Or maybe we'll do something if they're not in the area to cultivate those relationships because they're not, otherwise you are lonely.
And that's where it goes back to like imagination and like dreaming, because you wouldn't have known like, oh, what's something our group can do to get us connected. Like Michelle Obama was talking about how she would go on these like mini retreats with this group of Black women that she had cultivated, right, based on her circumstances. I think one of the moms that she was close to, it was either Sasha or Malia's school friend who had come over for a play date, and they had done, you got to go through the Secret Service, you got to do all these things, and so they become friends, right? And so she's saying how she really cultivated and leaned into that relationship, and how having that and then being able to be the first lady, come back to going through all the roles and duties of being a first lady, like that helped to aid and change her mindset and help it make it a little bit easier and not so completely daunting on her. So yeah, definitely.
And I think in her documentary, something I saw with her. Oh, it was one, maybe Oprah. Anyway, she showed it at dinner with her friends. Did y'all see that show? What was that on?
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then when I thought about it, I'm thinking she had to be intentional about her friendships as the first lady.
Right.
That's right.
And to find, remember she said they would go to Camp David and have a weekend retreat, or they would go to whatever, because she had to find a way to get out of that environment and go and be with people. But it wasn't going to happen. So she could have been a first lonely lady.
Mhm.
She decided, I'm going to cultivate my friendships and make the time to do that. And I just think in our lonely world that people are in, we don't want to take the effort that it takes to be unlonely.
It's making me think that some of the point of this book is to get off of autopilot.
Yes,
Make
yes,
choices.
yes,
Right.
yes.
To choose to not just to let things happen
Yes.
to you,
Yeah.
but to choose to be like, I don't like this. This is too much. I need to lay down, or like I need to think about things more deeply. What do I want out of this? What does wealth mean to me? What is
And
things
imagining
mean?
what your life could, how it could be differently. Spend the time to imagine that and then going into action, which is risky, it's scary. You can get rejection, all that, but there has to be some joy on the other side. That's what I'm saying from this. She's saying that we can get to that point. There is joy on the other side. If you can just go through it and then connect with people and
consistently,
and it takes work.
Working at it, yeah.
It's like you can say I'm not married, but you were married. It just doesn't. You're just not happily ever after. It's no magic pill. It has to take some work. So she's saying that. I think she's saying in all areas of our life, it's gonna take work, and to do this is radical. It's not to get off that wheel. Is radical work, and like she said, it's gonna take you a long time to do it.
Yeah.
And I want to extend it, that piece of it, because the next part that
Y'all keep living. Y'all gonna be
I
famous
was
too.
laughing at was when she talked about taking her, I think it was a 30-day sabbatical, and people kept emailing like, "Hey, so I know you're on sabbatical,
Yeah.
but
Can you?
can you do this?
No.
Like, and again, the choice, not falling into the autopilot mode, right? Of intentionally choosing yourself, intentionally setting up your boundaries. Shout out to Nedra.
Right.
That you can state and maintain the fact
That's
that
good.
you are not going to interrupt this time. And if you do, like, if I allow you to, how do I reclaim it somewhere else, right? So that I'm still
That's
choosing
good.
me in moments.
It
right?
made me. I was like, man, maybe I need to take a sabbatical. Wow. Now that was not 101 to me.
No, that next level master. Oh, okay, yeah.
It's that firm boundary.
Because I haven't really heard of people taking sabbaticals who are not like a pastor at a church or maybe a professor, right? So she does a ministry. She calls it the Nat ministry, but still, she chose.
Yeah.
Nobody like gave it to her. She said, "I'm gonna do this."
And you're talking about being addicted to work, so this is a whole nother political thing. But the guy in Muriel Bowser's, the guy who got accused of messing with women, sexual assault, sexual whatever. But my point is that they said that he was on leave without pay. But the email shows that he worked 9 days after that, even though he was on leave with pay. But I was thinking, I guarantee you, he's probably like, I'm on leave with pay. I'm on my couch. I'm minding my business. Here come Muriel, but you remember that paper you need to do for me? Can you send that over to me?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That's a different thing. But I'm sure he just couldn't say I'm done today.
Right.
When people keep emailing you, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? And then you feel the need to do it.
Your autoresponder.
It's like us. We're on work and somebody email you at 9. That's why I don't put them on my phone, because you feel the need to respond.
I gotta get better.
Even though it's 9 o'clock at night. Like, I'm a teacher. I don't have to answer emails in the summer. I don't look at them because I know if I do, people will put me back in work mode. They'll be like, can you look at this PowerPoint real quick?
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. I won't even look at it because I'm not getting paid for that.
I mean, so even the practice of, and I'm just thinking like, I'm just thinking of practice right now. Maybe that's in the rest deck here, is to actually take your phone. If I'm going to be in my living room or in my kitchen, take my phone and put it somewhere opposite in the house, right? I'm going to take it away from me. So I don't check email. I'm not checking social media. I might print off the recipe if I'm in the kitchen cooking or whatever it is, just so that I'm not allowing myself, like, because if it takes that kind of work for you to really step away from being interrupted by people who are at your job, right? Or if it's you just having an inability to resist IG. I love the fact that you can remove it without necessarily deleting it, right?
Mhm.
There are actions and practices that you can put into place to force yourself out of that habit. It requires intentional effort every day. And I think one of those things that I get like that weekly thing that says, "Oh, you've been doing this for so long." My biggest thing is I played this video game with Marvel characters. Like that's my biggest thing, right? It's not the social media piece, but when I see that, I'm like, "Oh, I spent how much time doing that this week?" I need to.
When they say your screen time adages.
Yeah, I need to share that down a little bit.
I think I got that mixed up.
Right. No, that was you. That was all you, Jackie.
No, that wasn't me. They got it mixed up. They were looking. I was looking at the Weather Channel. They included that. No, but I think it's an issue. But I think it is something that going back to yourself and being connected with the universe, the outside people. It's something to that.
And it's having that ability. And I wonder, like, so if there was a class being taught, right, using the book Set Boundaries in combination with this, right? Because if you have to, because it's boundaries you need to not only enforce with other people, but boundaries you need to enforce with yourself, right? Setting that discipline for yourself, not to actually fall back into some of the habits you're trying to break yourself out of, right? I think that's like, if you're just talking about that course of what this would look like, you have to kind of read that together, because if you don't know how to say no to stuff or people, then it's easy to find yourself in a position of, I'm answering this email even though I'm on vacation.
Yeah, think about like your days off. Unfortunately, we're in a day where your days off for a lot of people mean getting the errands you couldn't do during the week done. And that's not necessarily rest. That's not you tapping in back into yourself and grounding yourself. If you don't set those boundaries, like, oh, okay, I am going to run these errands, but it's only going to be from like 9 to 12 or 9 to 1, fitting in, or maybe do it days, right? That's why some people run their errands on Saturday and chill on Sunday, or vice versa.
Yeah. I think it was Oprah, and it might have been Dr. Phil. I know, Anyway, he used to always say, you teach people how to treat you. Simple. It's hard, but it's, those boundaries. This is my time when I don't work. Eventually, people are going to stop calling you during that time. They realize you sticking to it. This is my time when I go cycle. This is what I do. This is right. And then people will understand that. And if they don't, they're going to fall off, and that's okay.
Right. And that might not be the job for you. Like, I'm being able to say, you know what, boss, if you can't respect this, then this is not the place for me.
Right.
Like, because if they're going to break that this time, they're going to do it the next time.
Right.
That's right.
Right. So you can't, so you might just have to step away and say, you know what, this is not the right place for me. Right. So that the culture is not what is conducive for me to be able to maintain the type
or
of
you can read this book, you can put it in your boss's mailbox and suggest that the whole job reads it, and then you come back and say,
and there's a bonfire in front of that Fortune 500 company.
Going to rest. Just hope that people get to the point where everybody realizes, and I think the pandemic may have helped that when people are at home now, that, you can back on micromanaging. Some people at home are able to work at different times, and there are people being micromanaged where they like, you ain't been on, it's 9:30 and you're not online yet. But there are other people who are able to manage themselves, and people are learning to just step back and let the work happen.
Some people are.
Some people.
And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. I have to catch myself even on days off where I'm like quick to respond to something. I'm like, no, it's your day off. Someone else, maybe at another store, someone else is going to respond to that. It's okay. You don't have to respond. So.
It don't get done.
And I'm at that point. I think it came with age and maturity.
You really do. It's hard. It's a hard practice.
It is. I mean, look, there is like infinite number of things that has to be done every day.
Every day.
Yep.
Every day. and every day I might get to 2 of them. And then tomorrow there's another
8,000
added to it.
It's so raggedy.
Like,
It's not right. It's not right. It's not right. But you're right.
They set us up to fail.
They set us up to fail.
Systematically.
I'm checking off my list. Next thing you know, I think I'm free. Here comes another list.
But if you look at what you're actually still getting done,
Right.
You
And the
move
quality-
forward.
and the quality of your life, again, what is it that I want out of life, and what am I
It's
getting?
good, Derek.
Do I? Well, all that
Preaching.
stuff. If I don't do that or get that thing,
You can
then
make your own terms.
it's who cares? Like, because I'm already happy with where I am with it, right? Like, I think that's
good.
that's the thing. People have to get comfortable with themselves and what it is to what it is that makes them gives them a content, happy, fulfilled life.
And you
That
know what
promise.
Audre Lorde said? I have to define myself for myself.
For myself.
Was it
I
Yes.
don't know how to read.
Yes.
Yeah. I think
Yes,
that's
Audrey. Bring it.
Yes, Audrey, bring it on. Yes.
I said that.
Okay.
I did, but I didn't know what you said, so I didn't read it. Like, oh my goodness! So I'm just channeling Audrey Book just because I'm taking meditative time.
See?
It's working. It's working.
That's what
Derek.
this is speaking
Derek is
to.
working.
Yeah.
The ancestors
The
will come through.
ancestors
Yeah.
will come
You're
through.
meditating. They will
That was a
come.
really interesting part too. You really never know when you open yourself up for resting,
Mhm.
what will come through. She was talking about at the rest retreat, and they did that time to rest, and the woman finally had a chance to dream. She saw her grandmother who had just passed, and that was like a very closure kind of moment thing, and connectivity with the ancestor. I'm like, you couldn't get that. Your mind constantly racing, or you're not sitting down long enough to get that interaction, or when you're going to sleep at night, you're going straight to REM sleep because you're so exhausted from what you've been doing all day.
I like, and you talked about this earlier. I got to figure out how to create time, but the studying our roots from the continent and all these different empires who use forms of industry. Like, I don't know if maybe that's the right word. I'm trying to figure out a different word without saying capitalism, but there was active trade, right? There were places on the continent, on the east and west, north and south, that was active in commerce. But there was still from aspects of what we know about different cultures, a type of community and connectedness to the ancestors, to families that today's form of capitalism like completely cuts us from.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's like if I could just study that,
Yeah.
I would love to read more about those forms of commerce.
Yeah.
Because money is not new to America, and wealth is not new to America, but how we go about attaining it is the problem. And so I wonder, how do we connect back to our earlier roots and still, understanding that commerce is necessary, but maintaining that connectedness, like this, because that idea today to sit here and say, oh, I never knew that she said that she wrote that. And really, I just me and my daydreaming self, like, I'm joking about it, but I'm wondering, like, could that just be someone speaking that into me to help me kind of figure out who I am and not worry about other people? But that's a real part of who we are. That's, we do that now in our Christian walk. How are we connecting to our past, our ancestors? So I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling about it now, but I'm just wondering, there is a way to pursue, to utilize commerce, but to also be connected and uplifting the community, and not focused on individualism, but focused on not on community without being like the communists. They just, folk, they want to always connect it.
I did this little mini sermon recently on the topic of Jubilee.
Wow.
And in the Bible, it was a way of commerce. Part of it was a way of commerce, right? Because every 7 years, the land had to rest. And capitalism, as we know it, wouldn't allow for that. You're not going to plant for a year. Right? But every 7 years, not only did the land have the rest, like servants and people who worked the land also had the rest. But then every 50 years, every people who were in debt, the debts were forgiven. And things were reset.
Student loans.
Things were reset. That was a way of commerce. So it didn't mean that some people weren't wealthier than others. There were still some people who were servants, this, that, and the other, right? It wasn't communism, but it was a way of commerce that humanized people. And even at I think it was the 50th year, land was given back. If like a family lost their land for some reason, their land was given back to them. That gives me chills. I'm like, that is so different. I'm wondering if the commerce or the way of being that our ancestors practiced had some similarities to that, because that's commerce with some sense of boundary, right?
And balance.
Right. Because my part of the issue with capitalism now is there's no boundary. You just obtain as much wealth as humanly possible, mostly by any means necessary, right? And often it's outsourced and it's on the backs of black and brown folks, right? But this was a way of commerce that said, no, every 7 years and then every 50th year, we reset. Because that's good for the land, it's good for the humans, it's good for society and our sense of community and belonging.
I like that.
I want to end with not necessarily end with this, but because we are about to get to a place where we're wrapping up. But the thing that number one, I do love that, and it leads me to this thought that and you kind of touched on it earlier, was to me one of the most I can just imagine during the pandemic after George Floyd was murdered, and you had people in the streets, right? Not everyone, but a large amount of people from a variety of racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, or from a variety of socioeconomic backgrounds taking to the street. That had to be the most threatening thing
Oh, definitely.
to America's power brokers that they had ever seen. And it's interesting when you look at the connection to how soon after that people start saying, you know what, we need to reopen America and get these people back to work.
Yeah.
Because
So they not have all this time
when you have
to be
right,
thinking
to be
and
watching this news and
right,
getting
looking at
connected.
how stuff is unequal, stuff is so divided. We have to get these people back into
Work.
my one of my mentors, he used to give this talk, and he always talked about the hamster wheel. Right? He would say, the hamster would during the day he would compare it to 95. Like, we wake up, they get on the hamster wheel, get on 95, run. End of the day, you hop off the hamster wheel, hop off 95, go to your burrow down in your house, and then the next day you do it over and over and over again. And they were trying to get people back onto that hamster wheel, because without it, people won't start asking questions about why
And maybe
things
even
are working this way.
And you got time to act.
We gotta
too.
exhaust people.
You got time to
so
act,
that
and then
they
they're tired.
Right.
can't think clearly.
Yep. And that's when they start saying, you know what, all these people are kumbaya, and let's do critical race theory. Think about it, they thought all these things we can do because it was way too much kumbaya. And
Right.
one thing is resting. And like now, we don't even have time. I'll say time. I think a lot of people still chilling more than they used to. But you just don't have time to focus on critical race theory now because you what?
Right.
You're working.
So in it, she says, grind culture has thrown us into believing that suffering, hyperproductivity, and constant doing is redemptive. This is a lie. So
It's a lie.
just know it's all a lie. What I want to leave on is hearing how you guys are going to practice one restful practice. So mine is getting back into daydreaming because that's important to me as far as a creative and trying to get. So I'm really going to intentionally daydream and set out some time like she did to kind of just stare aimlessly for 30 minutes at some nature and get back into that. Anyone else?
I
What's
think,
one?
and for me, what I think after I read it, I started just taking the time every day to rest. Like I don't look and say, oh, I can't wait to go on vacation to rest. I'm gonna try to get some rest every day. So for me, it might just be sitting out, looking at those dogwood trees for a little bit. Just sit there and I'm not doing nothing. I'm just looking at those doggone trees that I didn't notice. For me, cycling does it too. I go out and just ride by myself.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to kill it. I'm just
Doing
trees on the trail, Anacostia Trail, chilling. That's just, So I've been trying to practice it since I read it. I'm not working right now, but when I go back I am working right now. One of my other jobs. When I go back to my other job,
The other job.
I'm going to not be running from 8 to 3. I'm just not going to do it anymore. I started practicing at the end of last year when I read that. I'm not running all day. I'm going to eat lunch in peace with not looking at the computer. And I'm going to do that every single day because I'll be eating and on the computer and typing, not doing it anymore.
Are you gonna practice Red Sea?
I'm gonna daydream about that sabbatical.
Figure out how to get to that sabbatical.
Goals, yeah.
The other thing I thought about is doing during the pandemic I started painting just like as a journal, almost art journal.
I love it.
And I haven't been doing that this year really, so I wanted to bring that back.
Yeah,
it's very restful.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say it on two sides. I'm gonna say one as an entrepreneur who has a culture that we're implementing to make sure that we're respecting other people. I want to try to be more intentional about not texting people too late in the day, right? Like I'm pretty good at it, like on the weekends, not doing it on the days off. But there are certain like people just who are in certain positions that I noticed that it'll be like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I'm like, dude, why are we still texting? Like, just stop. Like, it's good. You should be done. I'm trying to be done. Like, we're just like, let's just stop. Like, and I think what I'll do, I know I'm thinking it, but I think what I'll try to do more is to say, okay, cool, tomorrow. Like, just put that on the
those
text.
boundaries.
Right.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
Right. So for you and for me,
Let's
I
rest.
want you to I want you to stop. I don't want you to feel that we're just pouring all this on you. So I want to speak your boundary for you if you're not going to give it to me, but also for myself.
Yeah.
And so I it's a couple of things I want to do. I promised myself I would DJ, and Bernard told me at least 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You wanna
So I
DJ?
practice my DJ, yeah.
30
So
minutes.
I practice my DJing
Up in here.
into my art.
Up in
That's what I'm trying.
We're trying to get to it.
That's my goal. I don't. But I gotta practice. So I can do it.
Right. Okay.
So
I'm
practice.
feeling a book club after party.
Yeah, hey, look, I don't understand how many times I've thought about that.
Yeah.
So that reading more and not just the books club stuff, but like the stuff that I just talked about, like some of those things that just really interest me. Like those are the things that just is feeding me and my soul, so that I feel just good, breathe, I'm good to go. So that's what I want to do. So we want everyone else out there to talk about your rest practice. And I'm sitting, I started thinking about the ace bookseller over here.
You already know.
If you need some help with your rest practice, not just reading the book, but we do have the rest deck. I'm not trying to be like just a straight capitalist here, but there
But
are,
we do. How much are they?
and the price is just a mere, I
I
don't
think
know,
it's only 20, is it?
$19.95.
See?
Oh my
Yeah.
God! This bookseller is
Yeah.
the bomb.
Let's Deanna do a thing. But for real, guys, it is. This book is, and there are ways that overall I like the books. I like overall what she was saying, and I do agree with the fact that we have to, as a Black community, figure out a new way of existing in a capitalist system, because it's not geared towards us. Is geared towards exploiting us and finding ways to make certain people rich and keep other people in positions that are impoverished, that are just running and killing themselves and not living a life of contentment, happiness. So I 100% agree with that we have to find a way to resist and get back to ourselves. For that reason, I think if you just need to read it just to imagine what that might look like, kind of question what you're doing, this is definitely a book that I think is necessary in starting that journey. But next after that, I think you have to get with other people and have these conversations, because you have to figure out what does that mean for me personally to actually implement that in my life. So things like the rest deck or having a book club conversation about it, so that you can hear from other people and how they might struggle with it, or some things that they're doing to implement those rest practices, is, I think, a necessary thing. So I would highly encourage, read it, but definitely read it with someone else, discuss it, because I think that's part of actually making it a part of your life. So that was Restless Resistance. So
read the book,
claps,
practice it.
We did appreciate.
Great job.
We enjoyed
Great job,
that.
Tricia.
Great job, Tricia. If you are watching, we appreciate it. Now,
Oh, here we go.
a book that I chose. It's been some months, y'all. Last time, and we gotta figure out. Okay, so S.A. Cosby is
We read it
somewhat
earlier
local,
this year.
Yes.
right?
What
So
did we
we
read?
read
Tears.
Razor Blade Tears.
Oh,
Which was-
yes.
Hey, see that, y'all?
Yes.
Phenomenal book.
It was.
Yes, it was.
Fun book. It's just fun.
It was
It ain't
fun.
about learning nothing. It ain't about getting
It
better.
says after 3 nonfiction.
It ain't about none of that. It's about
Escapism.
pure and simple escapism, the joy of reading a book and watching and reading people get messed up. Like, it's a fun book. So please, y'all, check this out. All the Sinners Bleed. We're going to be reading it the rest of August, and we're going to discuss have the book discussion the first Friday in September.
Isn't that Labor Day weekend?
September 3rd?
It's September 1st.
That might be
September
Labor Day weekend.
Excuse me, yeah.
Yeah. So we actually have some special stuff happening
Mm-hmm.
that weekend as well. So this is the first day of our Black Books Matter Day weekend, kicking off tomorrow. We're celebrating
Black
at
Books
National
Matter.
Harbor. Black Books Matter. Today we were. I should have said at the beginning.
Right.
We were celebrating with the kickoff, doing a book discussion, because I'm in the know. That first weekend in September, we have some other stuff that's going to be kicking off.
It's going to be popping.
It's going
Go
to be popping.
So I shouldn't go out of town.
No, go out of town. So we're going to be discussing S.A. Cosby, All the Sinners Bleed. So I can't confirm anything. I know I'm going to reach out. I'm going to see if we can at least get the homie either here or if we can jump on a Zoom or something. But I would love to have him in on this conversation, because I don't think we've ever read an author's two books by the same author in the same
He
year.
better bring it.
yeah.
He better bring it. He better bring it.
Like, we've never done
That better be good.
So that first
I'm
S.A.
so
Cosby
nervous. I'm so nervous.
I'm not.
Yeah,
He's proven himself.
I'm going. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go with it. I'm going to go with it.
So, guys, head online to MahoganyBooks.com. You can get your copy, or you can come into the store here at Anacostia or at National Harbor to pick it up and come out and join us for this conversation. Maybe I'll be practiced enough that maybe we have a after book club jam session. We don't know. We'll see.
That's my birthday weekend.
Yeah.
So
we will definitely have some libations,
Right.
some funnery to
cupcakes.
celebrate Z's birthday.
Yeah, cupcakes.
Okay. So thank you guys for coming out and joining us. We appreciate it. Repeat the book name, please. I think
All the
she's talking
Sinners
about
Bleed.
All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. You can get it at MahoganyBooks.com, or you can come into the store, chat us up, and we'll be happy to get you autographed copies while we have some left. All right, guys. Take care. Peace. We appreciate everyone joining us.
And remember, Black books matter.
Black Books Matter. Always.
Today, tomorrow.
Peace.
It's like the Bible. Today, tomorrow, and always.